Yo, what is up, everyone? Azure SQL Database has a free offer, and guess who didn't know about it? This guy. But free is not the story I want to tell today. The real question is, what can I actually build with this free Azure SQL Database? In this video, I'm gonna start where most people start, in a messy spreadsheet, because everyone thinks a spreadsheet is a database. But then I'm gonna move to a little tiny feedback app that I created. I'm gonna submit some data to that Azure SQL Database, and then I'm gonna query it with my favorite language, T-SQL. So, you know how we like to do? Enough of all this talking. Let's do what? Let's head over to my laptop. So here's where a lot of people start. That's fine until the spreadsheet starts becoming the app, the database, the workflow. And so look at this. I have some messy speaker names. They're inconsistent. Look at the ratings. Some people put 5, some people put the word 5, the number 5, some people put 2 stars. And then do I need feedback? Yes, true, no, all that is completely inconsistent. And now, guess what? It's hard to trust the data. And if you trust the data, nobody's going to use the data. That is the moment where I want a real backend. So let's move this pattern over to that free Azure SQL Database. So instead of typing in a spreadsheet, I'm going to use my little conference feedback app. I'm going to choose a session that I did. This is who's submitting the information. The person's a developer. Of course, they gave me a 5, and then they gave a great comment, but there's some follow-up that they need. And so I'm going to go ahead and click submit, and it says, hey, the feedback is submitted to your Azure SQL Database. So I'm going to go over to SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. You can easily connect to that database. And so I'm going to run this query, and you can see where it came from, my mini app. I'm going to go ahead and run this. And so you can actually see the session. It was from the mini app. It was from the Guy in the Cube Summit. It's for me. And you can see the person that submitted it and the rating. And now this is becoming something real. It's not just a spreadsheet. You can see in the query that I did joins and tops and things like that. You can't do that in a spreadsheet. But let's do something else, right? And so I loaded some very scientific data into this with some familiar names. And so I'm going to run this query. This is a fun one. I did some stuff on purpose, but I loaded some data here. And what you'll see is you have Patrick at the top, a perfect score, and then Adam at the bottom. Adam hadn't been doing sessions lately, so he needs a little more practice. But obviously this is fictional demo data, but the point is real. Once the data is structured, I can query across sessions, speakers, feedback, instead of hunting through spreadsheet rows. Now, let me ask something that really matters. What needs attention? What needs follow-up? You saw in my little app that there's a checkbox if someone wanted to follow up. So now I can run this query and you can see the action status. So I've done some things in this query to show those things that need follow-up. Imagine trying to do that with the spreadsheet, going across multiple tabs, doing all those crazy VLOOKUPs. But my point is, I'm doing this with a free Azure SQL Database with 0 cost. And now you may be thinking, well, Patrick, how do I get started with this? Well, let me show you. I'm going to switch over to the Azure portal. So I have my logical server that I already created, and you need to create a logical server. But if you search for Azure SQL Database, or if it's already one of the services that's available at the top, just click it. And all you need to do is click the drop down and choose SQL Database free offer. Now, there's some limitations on regions and things. You need to go and make sure your resource group where you're creating this is in the right region. But now, once I set it up, all I need to do is give it a name. The cost indicator tells me, hey, it's free. And if I go to advanced, you'll see down here, this is important because at the time I'm recording this, the free offer includes serverless compute, 32 gigs of data storage, 32 gigs of backup storage. I can start with a real Azure SQL database without cost being the first decision. But if I need to go past those limits, I can tell it to turn on and keep going. For a prototype like this, I want to stay inside the free offer until I decide that this is no longer a prototype. But once I'm done, I make all my decisions. I click review and create, and my database is created. The Azure SQL Database is not only where you go after the solution becomes serious, it can be where you start. Today, we started with a messy spreadsheet. Then we moved to my beautiful tiny feedback app backed by an Azure SQL Database. We submitted some feedback. We saw the row land in SQL. We ranked speakers across structured data, and then we used the data to find out what needs follow-up. If you have any questions, comments, you know what to do. Post them in the comments below. And always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the cube.